Hey folks, I recently attended a conference, InfoSecurity Europe in London, a couple weeks back, and I presented a session on how threat actors are using local LLMs to do spear phishing generation at scale. And actually, this consumed a lot of my nerd hour time for, a couple of days while I was working on the demos and things like that. And, there was a lot of great information I gathered as part of this process, right? I mean, part of this was my own personal time, but a lot of it was from my professional job as well, too, where I work in the security industry. Now, there were a lot of great takeaways from the session, and I wanted to talk about it with the show's audience today. So I've got Eric Siron on. We're going to talk about, again, how threat actors are using local LLMs for spear phishing generation at scale. More importantly, what you as sysadmins can do about it to protect your end users and protect those people in your life that you would rather not have them fall victim to a phishing scam. So with that, I got that and lots more in today's episode of SysAdmin Weekly. Hey everyone, it's a new week. That means it's time for another episode of SysAdmin Weekly. This is your podcast by sysadmins, for sysadmins, and dedicated to all the tireless tech folks working in the trenches day in and day out to keep the digital world spinning. As always, I'm your host, Andy Serwich, and I've got, my very frequent co-host with me here. I've got Eric Siron again with me today. How's it going, Eric?
Doing good. How are you doing, Andy?
Doing good. Can't complain. I've been on the road a bit lately. I'm sure it'll come up in this episode, but I was at InfoSecurity Europe in London for a week. And of course, conference with thousands and thousands of people. I had to bring bronchitis back home with me, and I still have just a touch of it. So if I cough during this episode, my apologies, folks, but I think I'm good. I think I'm okay. So, but yeah, doing well. I've been looking forward to doing another episode. And in fact, I said it would come up in this episode. This episode specifically ties into what I presented on at InfoSecurity Europe. So I did a session that was all about how threat actors leverage local LLMs, not the ones in the cloud, not the ones that we all think of when we hear the term LLM, but using local LLMs for phishing generation at scale. And I figured that would be a good podcast episode for today because, we touch on a lot of security topics. I don't know as if we've had a episode specifically about a security topic, though. Maybe the DNS over HTTPS one you could argue is security adjacent, right? Because it's kind of a privacy thing. But anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself. So, but Eric, good to have you on the show as always, my friend. What do you think? Should we jump into News React and Nerd Hour here?
Yes, we should.
So, folks that are just joining us, welcome to the show. Hope you enjoy your time here. We always have a couple of recurring segments at the beginning of every show. We have our News React segment, which is the segment of the show where my co-host and I, we, choose a tech news headline that really caught our eye over the last couple of weeks, and we talk about it a little bit. So, selfishly, I'm going to go first on this one, and there's my first cough. I found this one particularly interesting because of the implication of what occurred with this particular case. And of course, there is my It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia reference for the episode. But it's the news item that I chose for News React this week is the fact that with a flick of their fingers, the U.S. government seems to have prevented a new LLM model from being pushed to market, aka Anthropic and Fable / Mythos, right? So Anthropic actually released Fable and Mythos to, Fable to the public. If you're not familiar with the two, Fable is basically Mythos with a lot of guardrails on it, is essentially what it is. And after they released it, allegedly what happened, this came out after the fact, but allegedly what happened, Andrew Jassy, I don't remember, the CEO of Amazon, basically went to the U.S. government and said, hey, there's some national security concerns with this model. The U.S. government turned around and told Anthropic, hey, you can't let foreign nationals use this model. And of course, Anthropic, not being able to tell who was sitting at the computer using their model, it was just safer for them to just pull it from market, right? So we have a case now where the U.S. government has basically shut down an offering of a private company, right? And I brought this one up because it kind of ties into the larger discussion that we've been having on and off on the show throughout several episodes about the power of local compute and not being dependent on workflows that live in the cloud, right? And, imagine if this particular model, Fable, had been out for 2 months, 3 months, 6 months, whatever. And then it was pulled from the market after people had time to build workflows around it, build it into their day-to-day, and then all of a sudden it disappears. Again, building the case for that local LLM capability, right? And of course, having the power to run LLMs, meaningful LLMs locally on site. That's a whole different discussion. That I think we're going to have to be having another episode here on in a bit, Eric, about the availability of hardware, because I have some gripes about that. Anyway, that's my news react item for the episode. What do you got for us, my friend?
I was fighting in my head over two, and I'm just going to do them both. One ties topically into this week's episode. State of New York passed a law that says 3D printers cannot print from blueprints that make so-called ghost guns. And I haven't seen an official industry reaction yet, but the general consensus among them is that's a great idea. Do you have any ideas how we would do that? So that'll be interesting to kind of see. I mean, because like if you take a blueprint and say ghost gun and then send it out, well, that's obvious. But otherwise, how does a printer know it's making a gun? And of course, the difference between a gun and a not a gun might just be in the assembly of the final pieces. So what stops me from saying I'm going to print this piece here, and these different ones, and then in a separate thing, here's how you assemble them all into a gun. And of course, we have certain ideas of how guns are made, but it's not necessary, because at the end of the day, you need something that can propel an object at a high rate of speed. And that's
right.
So we have standardized on ways to do that with modern cartridges, but certainly not the only way, so there's a whole lot of, okay, we're not opposed to the concept of it, but it's making it work. How do you actually do that? How does the printer know? So on and so forth. So and then I thought that kind of tied in with today, because you're going to get into, well, how would we stop this? It's not that we don't want to, but how would we do it? Because the computer still, even with so-called AI, doesn't actually know what's going on. So
Yep.
then the second one, no, of course I'm going to lose my train of thought right on that one, aren't I? Google is by state of California has decided that Google is going to be responsible for invalid AI responses.
I saw that.
I'm
Yeah.
excited to kind of see where we go with this, because accountability has been the big question around AI the whole time. If AI tells you to do something evil, whose fault is it? So
That's a good point. Be interesting to see where that one ends up. And the 3D printing thing, it drives me crazy. You see all these laws get enacted where there's some sort of decree that says you tech people have to behave a certain way. Okay, that's great, but that's not how it works. The technology doesn't exist to do what you want to do, right? And
right.
so it becomes a non-starter. And it's again, people litigating things they don't understand.
Mhm.
But I
Like, it
digress.
seems like all my news react segments for a long time have been about executives running their mouths about things they don't know anything about. Well, now I guess this week it's the politicians running their mouths about things they don't know
Politicians,
anything about.
yeah.
At least I can say in this case, like, I'm okay with the sentiment, I'm not anti-gun or anything, but I am anti people who shouldn't have guns having guns. I think that's a terrible idea, and this is
Yeah.
okay. So yeah, the sentiment of let's not let scary people print guns. I like that sentiment, but again, the enforcement of it is too. I don't see how you do it in a way that doesn't that accomplishes what you want without a lot of side effects you didn't want.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I don't know how you accomplish that without impacting that industry heavily.
Yeah.
I mean,
I know there was a lot of lobbying, both from the 3D printing industry and from a lot of open source groups. That like this is a bad idea. I mean, it's a good idea. It just there's no way to implement it. So it's a bad
yeah.
idea to make a law out of this. So we'll see.
It'll be interesting to see where the dust lands on that one too. There's a lot of stuff in the industry right now where it's like, huh, I guess we'll wait and see. Kind of a lot of interesting stuff that's been going on in the industry, but we'll add that one to the pile.
What may happen, and I guess this is sort of the benefits of being married to an attorney and one who has worked at government level before, is it's often up to the prosecutor, A, what they're going to attempt to prosecute, and B, what they think they can get through the court system. So it is possible to write super vague laws on the understanding that you're not going to try to prosecute something stupid.
Right.
Now, again, there's still a lot of question marks there. Is like, well, who can guarantee that? And well, nobody can guarantee that. So, I, yeah, I'm on the industry side on this. It was a bad law. They should have made it.
Yeah. Well, I guess we'll see where that one lands. So, well, next up is our Nerd Hour segment. And of course, it doesn't take an hour, but this is the segment of the show where my co host and I, we talk about the geeky, nerdy things that we've been doing in our spare time. And, well, I went first for News React segment. I'll let you take this one first, Eric. What have you been working on in your Nerd Hour time as of late?
Oh, nothing fancy. Don't want to go into a lot of details until it's all over and done, but I am going on a road trip and decided to up my photography equipment. Basically an excuse to go buy some more toys. So been playing with my camera a little bit more lately, getting ready for that. So
Makes it a
nothing
little
fun,
easier
but
when there's
I enjoy it.
justification for it, right?
Yeah. I mean, because some of it has been lenses purchases, and I don't know if anybody plays with cameras very much, but anything more than a basic point and shoot, if you're buying a lens for it, that's not cheap.
Gets pricey very quickly. I'm
It
not really a
does.
camera person outside of, you know, podcasting and stuff at my desk here, but I have looked at lenses once in a while and it's like, boy, that's really expensive.
Very, very much so. And do I
Yeah.
need all the lenses I bought?
No.
N- No,
No, no.
I don't.
Oh, well. Gotta spend the money somewhere, right? I mean,
I mean, yeah, I could probably, do better things, more impactful things with my money, but every once in a while, like,
yeah. Well, hey, here I am talking about getting a nice beefy Mac Studio for local LLM inferencing, because, well, all the reasons I just talked about. And that's a big, nasty purchase I don't really want to make, but I keep thinking about and keep coming back to. But we'll see. I'm kind of waiting for the M5 series to come out, the M5 series Mac Studios to come out. The rumor is later this year. They're supposed to be out already, allegedly. But of course, the current hardware market has everything in upheaval. So who knows when it'll actually come out. So, but we'll see. So for my Nerd Hour segment, it is very closely tied to our topic today, right? And so every year I'm often asked to do a session at InfoSec EU in London, and I knew I wanted to actually spend 90% of my session actually in a terminal window and doing a demo because all the InfoSec sessions I've seen tend to be very slide heavy And it's been a common theme I've heard over the last several years, like, hey, we want to see more demos, we want to actually see more geek stuff, right? And so that's what I endeavored to do this year. And I accomplished that, in my opinion. Like I said, 90% of my session was spent in a terminal window actually doing things with Ollama and some open source models, and did some interesting stuff. So a lot of stuff that I'm going to talk about in today's session kind of is my nerd hour stuff, because that's what I spent a lot of my, honestly, both my professional time and some of my personal time working on, just because it was, I don't know, when I get interested and obsessed with something, I really get obsessive with it. It's like I just want to keep poking at that thing until it's exactly what I need for the project that I'm working on. So anyway, that's kind of been the nerd hour stuff I've been working on. That and just kind of some additional lab stuff, but nothing that's too crazy. Mainly just clean up stuff, setting up my lab for longevity as opposed to flashy stuff. But I think I talked about that in the last episode we recorded. So anyway, let me get my show plugs out of the way here, and then we'll get to our main segment. So again, if you want a nice, clean list of all the links that are associated with the show, you can go to www.sysadminweekly.com. It'll get you to a site where you can find the links to Spotify, YouTube, Apple Podcasts. You'll also find a link to our newsletter there at newsletter.sysadminweekly.com, as well as a link to the GitHub discussion boards. Now, I mentioned on several episodes of the show, there was a reason why we chose the GitHub discussion boards, right? We figured everybody already had a GitHub account. We figured that people would not want to have yet another Discord server that, they were part of. But I'm open to feedback there as well, too. If the GitHub discussion boards is not really your jam, I'd be curious to hear. And if so, why? Would you prefer a Discord service instead? Just kind of, I want to make sure we have a community hangout where the community actually wants to hang out, right? So just out of curiosity there, I'd be curious to hear you guys' feedback on that. You can leave comments on the Spotify and YouTube versions of the show, or go over to the GitHub discussions board. You can open a topic there, or email us at contact@sysadminweekly.com for more info. So with that, excuse me, let's get into our main topic today. And the main topic, again, is has to do with local LLMs. And we've spent a lot of time talking about local LLMs on the show. Our good friend Mike Nelson and I, we had a whole episode or two, I don't remember which, specifically on running Ollama and spinning up local models using Ollama on your endpoint. Now, for those not familiar with what Ollama is, you can do a Google search for it. Otherwise, I'll put a link to it in the show notes. Ollama is essentially a service that allows you to download and host open source models. And you can use it just using a standard pull run syntax, right? So Ollama pull llama 3.2 to pull down Meta's latest model. Well, that's not their latest model anymore, but you get the idea, right? That's the general syntax. Or if I want to run Quen 2.5, Ollama run the name of the model, right? So it has a nice syntax to it. It gives you a nice little chat front end on your endpoint if you prefer working with it that way, or you can work with it entirely inside of a command prompt. You can also use tools like OpenCode. If you're not familiar with OpenCode allows you to have Claude Code type functionality using those local models running on your endpoint. Now, like I said, Mike Nelson and I, we did an episode or two talking about how sysadmins can use local LLMs for sysadmin type tasks, right? In this episode, our main segment in today's episode, we're flipping it a little bit here. How are threat actors using local LLMs to essentially do phishing at scale, right? And this is the type of session I do quite a lot in my day job, and a lot of people ask me, like, well, aren't you kind of facilitating people learning how to do this? Well, yeah, in a way, I guess you could make that argument. Here's the thing. As sysadmins, you always have at least kind of one toe in the security world, right? Maybe you're a sysadmin for a small organization. You are the security person as well as the sysadmin, as well as the endpoint administrator, as well as, the janitor for the server room, right? Everything else. So from a security perspective, generally speaking, you can't protect against what you don't understand. And so part of the reason for raising the awareness of these type of capabilities, how local LLMs can be used offensively by bad actors, it kind of informs you what types of threats are out there and what you can do about them, right? And so that's the reason that security vendors like the one I work for and others in the industry, why we share this type of information. And so really, I guess where I want to start with here is, I guess let's talk about a gap that exists in the market. And by gap, I don't mean like a lack of product or something, but from a security perspective, there's a gap in guardrails. So if you spin up Claude or ChatGPT or Copilot today and you say, hey, write me a phishing email, what do you think it's going to do, Eric? What do you think it would do? Just out of curiosity.
My assumption will very politely tell you no.
Yep, exactly. That's exactly what would happen because there are safety guardrails on those models. They have existed for quite a long time. Now, yes, there are things like jailbreaks. A jailbreak, in terms of an LLM, in case you aren't aware, is a method or workaround to get a model to produce output that it should not produce. Now, jailbreaks still exist today. And I think to a degree, jailbreaks will always exist. But generally speaking, it's very difficult to get popular cloud-hosted models to produce outputs that they shouldn't, and with good reason. Now, that said, there are no such guardrails with some local models. Some models have safety training built in, but they are typically easier to game. And if I'm having trouble, let's say I'm a bad guy and I'm trying to make malware. If I'm having trouble with one local model, well, chances are I can go pick a model from a open source repository that is much more compliant than the one I was trying to work with previously. So, you familiar with Hugging Face, Eric? The website huggingface.co, I think, is what it is.
No.
And what huggingface.co is it's basically an online open repository of open source large language models. Is essentially what it is. Basically, if I were so inclined, I could go pull down, I don't know, some local model that a guy named Bob in his garage made for a specific purpose, right? And he hosts it on huggingface.co. It's basically an open source repository of local models. And so the models without guardrails are readily available, easy to find, and easy to use via a tool like Ollama. Now, to give you an idea of the type of capabilities, and I'm actually going to post a video of this somewhere on the web in the coming weeks. I haven't figured out whether that'll be via my employer's YouTube channel or something I do myself. I'll post it somewhere, and I will let the community here know so they can go take a look at it. But to give you an idea of what this looks like, right? This the way that threat actors are using local models to kind of go around those guardrails, take advantage of that gap. Let me walk you through what the demo I did looks like at a high level from start to finish. And so what I did is I'm standing up there in my session, and first thing I do is I show the audience, like, hey, look, I'm not connected to any Wi-Fi. I do try to do a DNS resolution, can't resolve anything, and I even try to ping out to 8888, and hey, can't reach anything. So I prove I'm not connected in any way, shape, or form. And then I load up Ollama, And I'm getting ahead of myself. I do one other thing first. Is I show a couple of files that I have in the local repository and the directory that I'm working in. Now, one of the things that generative AI is very good at is it's creating large amounts of text at scale, right? But the problem that we've seen, right, is it tends to make everything rather generic, which is a problem. And if I am a bad actor and I want to send thousands and thousands and thousands of phishing messages, well, generic may work for me, right? Because there are some bad actors out there that, from a phishing campaign perspective, will send millions of low effort phishing messages. And even if they still get, I don't know, 0.5% interaction rate, that's still a pretty hefty payday for them, unfortunately, right? Because when we talk about large scale phishing, we're talking about economies of scale. Now, what I ended up doing is, and again, threat actors are doing this today. Our research, the place where I work, shows this. But first thing I did is I exported my publicly available LinkedIn information, right? So there's a way that you can export to a CSV the information that's available in your public profile. And then, just so I wasn't using other people's information in my demo, I used AI to synthetically generate like another 10, 15 targets, people, right? So based on my information and my type of LinkedIn stuff, give me, a couple of mock targets that, we'll use for various things. And it did a really good job of generating some mock people, right? Like, one person in the list had recently gone through a promotion. Another person in the list was just getting into the security industry. Another person in the list was a native French speaker, right? So there was a variety of different roles and seniority types, right? So it was a good list of people in this context file that I ended up creating. So I pointed the LLM at this file that I've got all of these LinkedIn contacts, right? Most of them synthetic. And this is where the guardrails I was talking about, or the lack thereof, come into play, because I specifically told it, I want you to create phishing messages for each of these targets, right? And I want you to use varying levels of aggressiveness. You can use tactics like coercion, blackmail, right? I mean, I really told it to get nasty with the generation for each of these targets. And here's the thing: it went through the list, created a phishing message specific to each target, right? It listed the psychological trick that would be most likely to work on that specific target based on the information available in their public profile, and then it moved on to the next. Now, here's where it gets interesting, right? From a phishing generation perspective, I am a native English speaker, but if I want to create phishing messages in a different language, I don't know the language. Well, here's the thing: the LLM got to the contact who is a predominantly French speaker, and created that particular phishing message in French. And it did it during, again, this was during the demo at InfoSec. I asked the crowd, I'm like, okay, does anybody here speak French? Because I don't. And I asked them, I'm like, a couple people raised their hands, and I'm like, how is it? Is it pretty good quality? And they're like, yeah, it's pretty convincing. So think about that, right? So I had a list of 15 targets, all with different, again, types of seniority, different job descriptions, things like that. And based on that information, a local model, again, using my own local hardware, generating a phishing message specific to each person, right, based on their specific information. And so gone are the days of like, hey, I'm a Saudi prince and I want to give you money, right? And so it's so easy to create targeted phishing at scale now, right? And I paired that with a video demo. I used to demo it live, but I got to be doing it so much that I just ended up showing a recording now when I have to show it. But I paired that with a video recording of EvilGenix in action, which is a reverse proxy phishing kit where the whole crux of the attack relies on getting a link in front of the target. And so you pair those two ideas together, now you have the entire attack chain. And, well, I had some people in the audience looking very nervous after that. And so, I mean, that is the the guardrail gap, right? That threat actors are taking advantage of by running their own local models, right? And so, uh, I don't. I want to make sure I give you a chance to get a word in edgewise here, Eric. But that's kind of what prompted the entire idea for this episode, right? And when I talk about those guardrails, my demo exemplifies that perfectly. So
I'm
I don't know if you have any
panicking a little
thoughts.
bit. I'm panicking a little bit on this one, because it's going to take away a lot of the triggers I used to have. Like, I don't know, like a lot of phishing messages that came to me, it seems like they weren't written by native English speakers, so you had a whole lot of leg up right there.
Yep.
Right, when the people attacking you don't speak your language natively, so they don't get the idioms correct, or saw a lot of homonym problems too. As I see the word porpoise, the thing that looks
Mm,
like a dolphin, we all think is a dolphin, but it isn't, the porpoise,
yep.
when they meant to say purpose.
Yep.
So, stuff like that, things that are like, all right, all these porpoises, huh? Like, the far more often that one word would come up than in any kinda standard, just
Yeah.
the kinda interactions I'm in, I just don't use that word very often, so no, 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 stuff like that, so all these things you're saying, because 'cause I've had a couple of attempts at phishing that I came really close to falling for it, which disturbed me a lot, and I know a lot of, older people that are falling for them quite
Yep.
frequently, so this is really disturbing. And I want to call back something I thought about, or not thought about, but has been explained before on encryption. Like, you have data that's out in the world that's encrypted today, and somebody captures it and they can't decrypt it now, but they will be able to.
Yep.
So it's the same deal with these, or similar, could be with these language models. People are downloading them, using them for phishing, and they just keep the models forever. Even as
Yep.
others move on, they just still have the one because human psychology doesn't change that quickly.
Yep.
So,
The
maybe.
capabilities exist locally today. Therefore, if I have the model, I can retain those capabilities ad infinitum, basically, is what you're getting
Correct.
at, I think.
Correct. That's
Yep.
exactly it. And
Yep.
maybe there will be a thing that comes along with, so like, we came up with heuristics and antivirus. The simple pattern matching stopped working almost immediately.
Yep.
Back in the 90s, they caught on to that. So they came up with heuristics to predict, well, is this virus like behavior? So maybe they can, your email filters will come up with something similar that, okay, we kind of recognize the text that this particular language model produces. So, but can they, I don't know if that's possible. I'm just,
Yeah, and
the
so,
only
I
combat I know against it would be something like that, but it wouldn't stop people from picking up a phone, because I know a lot of the elderly people I've been talking, that I know of, who are getting scammed, it's through phone calls.
yeah.
But you're talking about phishing, probably assumed by an email thing, but what's the difference between that and somebody just calling up and reading off a script? It's what a lot of these outfits do. They just read off a script,
Yeah.
as they just need your name and then they just fill in the blanks. So,
A lot of them do. A lot
yeah,
of them
your
do.
your email
And
filters won't stop that.
yeah, and it's funny you mentioned that, and I'm sure I'll get into this a little bit more when I talk about, what actually defends against this, right? But and again, I'm not, I don't typically mention the company I work for here on the show, but a LinkedIn search will tell you, I work for Hornet Security, which is a sub company of Proofpoint. So we do email security, right? And so we actually do have, again, I'm not giving a pitch here, but the technology does exist to use AI on the defensive side as well too, to analyze, is this like AI generated behavior type of thing. So that technology absolutely does exist, right? And it is relevant from a defensive scanning perspective. Now, the one thing I didn't mention, something you said made me think of this. Before I did the automated demo, I was just showing the power of the model specifically, and I was using myself as the target. I said, "Hey, I really need to get Andy to click on a link here, right? So generate an email that would be enticing for him to click on. Use urgency." And the first, I generated 3 different ones while I'm standing up there on stage, and the first one it generated was, I felt like it was trying to sell me something, right? So I'm like, I told it to be more aggressive, and it got a little bit more aggressive. And so then I gave it an idea at the last point. And again, one of the popular models online would not. My neighbor has decided to do leaf blowing. Hopefully, you can't hear that a whole lot. Anyway, the popular models would not allow you to do what I told it to do next, and I told it, hey, you know what? Let's go with a kind of a blackmail route. I said, pretend to be a security researcher who has found a critical vulnerability in one of your companies, the company Andy works for, found a vulnerability in one of their products. And if Andy doesn't click this link to schedule a meeting in the next 48 hours, they'll go public with it, right? And like, I'm standing there watching it generated on stage, and I stop for a second. I'm like, I know it's fake, but just reading it triggers anxiety. I would look at this one twice if it ended up in my inbox, and so the models that are available in the cloud today, you would never be able to generate that. But again, your threat actors are not going to go use Claude and GPT, right? They're going to use local models like this because, again, they're very pliable and they do what they want them to do. So to your point, I mean, it's scary from that perspective because it makes spear phishing so much easier, right? Anyway, so I'm looking at my outline here, and we've kind of covered a lot of aspects of this already, right? But one common question that I had come up during the show, somebody came and asked me afterwards, is like, well, why Olama, right? And of course, Olama is not the only option that allows you to run models like this. There are others out there, but Olama is by all means the easiest. Like I mentioned, it's super easy to pull a model just doing Olama pull, And I think it was Quen 2.5. It's a model from Alibaba. It has some guardrails built in, but I found it is very compliant and will do a lot of things that it probably shouldn't do. And so, like, if I'm a threat actor, I want the path of least resistance, right? And that's why they might use Olama. I mentioned it earlier, right? I mean, really, it's the same tool that we talked about all the way back in episode 24, again with our good friend Mike Nelson. Same tool, but the opposite intent here, right? If you go back to that episode, I think Mike and we pitched local LLMs as it's like that privacy respecting third option for those shops that can't risk shipping sensitive data off-site somewhere to a hosted model. They don't want it to be ingested into a training process on the other side, right? Or even risk that, right? Because yeah, Claude, GPT, Gemini, they all have the little switch box, right, that says, "Don't train on my data."
Mm-hmm.
You guys trust them? I'm not sure I do.
I'm positive that I don't.
And I don't know as if that has ever been independently audited for any of them. Are they actually honoring that? I don't know. I hope they are. And so Mike Nelson and we were making the case that, like, okay, Olama hosted locally on premise using local models, you don't run that risk, right? And you can even be super paranoid, right? If you want to make sure that this LLM does not talk to the internet, you can block that outbound traffic from that node, right? If you want to. That's another benefit of running it on premises. You can really get crazy with filtration, right? And so I guess what it comes down to is, like, right, your question, Eric, like, what actually defends against this and what does not, right? I think that's logically the next place I'm getting to. I think I've covered a lot of the stuff that I want to cover already, but before I get to that, any questions, any thoughts that come up for you on what we've mentioned so far?
I don't know that I have anything else to add. Of course, my brain is immediately going out to how we're going to fix this. And I still like my big concern on this is using AI generated voices to read AI generated spear phishing over the phone and then react in real time using a local model. And,
Yeah.
hey, Barbara, your bank account has been compromised and we need you to give us some information so we can back out these transactions and stuff like that.
I see what you're saying. Pairing it with AI generated deepfakes. And like you said, so it pivots, on the fly while the victim is on the phone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then you're filtering. We may
Yeah.
wind up with some sort of like SPF for telephones, which we should have had. I don't know why we've never had anything like that, but some sort of. I
Oh my
mean,
god, it seems so simple, doesn't it? Why doesn't that exist?
so many things in the phone system. I don't understand why this doesn't exist. It's not even hard. Why are we not doing that?
It seems like it makes so much sense. Like, okay, if you're from Visa, these are the authorized phone numbers for Visa. I That seems like such a simple thing. Why does that not exist?
We have the
Phone
technology.
carriers. What's up with that? Come on, go make it. I'm sure there's some limitation because it seems like such a simple, low hanging fruit thing. But yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, I thought about that in 2 minutes. So come on, I know there's people out there smarter than me with more time on their hands to fix this. This is not. I'm sure it's not going to be easy, but come on.
Uh, yeah. And I mean, yeah, the other common question that came up kind of along those lines is like, yeah, the defense problem, right? But I had somebody come up and ask me, like, okay, well, is from a industry perspective, is this like an uncensored model problem, or is this a deployment with no guardrails problem? So
I
I
don't think it's
mean,
any of the above. I mean, if
yeah,
you
agreed.
you can sit down and once you kind of get the idea of how LLMs are done, you can build your own model.
Yeah,
So just we're going now, and I've said this a bunch of times. The reason these people are scammers is because work is not something they want to do. So I don't really see that they're not very ambitious people, but selling to scammers because well, there was a whole thing about like people would sell services like we'll write malware for you and sell that to you so that you can then ransom other people. And so there is this market out there for bad actors to sell to other bad actors. And yeah, somebody sits down and makes these LMs or sets up a here's how to make your own horrible person LM. It's like the anarchist cookbook for scammers, sort of a thing.
and you know what? I'm glad you mentioned that because everything I've talked about so far and everything I talked about in my talk was done using regularly available models either on huggingface.co or right from Alama's website itself. And I didn't even get into the dark web specific models that are available. Darkbert is the one I'm thinking of. It's a basically wide open version of Gemini, if I remember correctly. Don't quote me on that because I don't remember exactly for sure. But there are models on the dark web that are used specifically for threat actor purposes, right? So those do exist. And to your point, if I'm an attacker, I don't want to work all that hard. Um, I can go. I know that there are rentable dark web LLMs that are available for use as well too. If I don't even want to bother with my own local models, so the tools are out there, right?
Hmm.
And
I don't
I
think you can
guess,
stop it any more than you can stop the whole "don't let my 3D printer make a gun" sort of a thing.
yep,
It's just not going to be possible.
it's a genie that is not going back in the bottle.
It's
Period.
not, and it would have come about anyway. I mean, honestly, phishing has been. I don't think the couple of phishing things that almost got me. I don't believe those were AI generated because I think they were a little before that was a thing, really.
Yeah,
So that's they've been getting more sophisticated anyway. So
yeah,
it was coming. It
yeah,
really was, and whatever time we had, I'll just be happy about it. And it's also a reason that it's another reason I'm pretty like as soon as I can tell somebody's trying to sell me something, done. We're out. We're not doing this.
yeah,
So unless it's I started it, or there are ways I feel like are legitimate attempts to sell me things, and if it doesn't come one of those ways, I'm just done. But most of these phishing attempts that would get me have nothing to do with sales attempts. So we're
Yeah.
gonna wind up being like, I don't trust anybody at any time. And yeah, it sounds like my wife on the other end of the phone, but if I'm not looking her in the eye, it's not her. That's
Yeah. Dude, we're gonna have to do a whole episode on deepfakes because I think it was 3 years ago. I did a webinar with a coworker of mine, and I gave it 4 minutes. I used an open source AI voice generation utility. I gave it 4 minutes of me talking, and it got real close,
mm,
super close, right? And we kind of played light of it because we tend to when we're talking about heavy stuff like AI deepfakes. And so I had the deep fake of me say things like, "Oh, Matt, you smell funny and nobody likes you," and ha ha, just stuff like that, right? Um, but it sounded really close to me. I was very similar to my voice. Now, would my mother know the difference? Maybe not with as good as they're getting, right? And I've actually
well,
gone so far as to telling my mother, and my wife knows this, like, if I ever call you and I'm allegedly in another country and I've been in a car accident and I am facing legal problems and I need money, ask me some questions that only I would know the answer to, and they know what those questions would be, right?
yeah.
So I guess that's one takeaway I would have for folks in this episode, especially when we're talking about audio deepfakes, right? I mean, those that are close to you, make sure they know these threats are out there, and make sure you take steps to educate them a little bit. So, I'd like to think my mother would not fall for this stuff. So, um, but
So
I
I don't know
digress.
how you do it in audio, but I saw a wonderful low tech fix for this. So the channel, the Ryan Hall, y'all, or I forget, he does weather on YouTube, and he's got his own very, very large kind of a deal. And somebody did a deep fake of him, and he does weather stuff. So like he can tell you, like, there's a tornado in your area or whatever, stuff like that.
Right.
And somebody did a deep fake of him doing something like that, right? And so to combat that, now whenever he starts a show, he'll show himself eating some piece of fruit, and then on their official site, they'll say today's fruit is a banana or something.
Smart.
So that way, it's like a super low tech way to just kind of give you, I get what MFA. What's the word for independent verification?
It is a form of MFA, right? Of course, my security brain went like, okay, well, what would I have to do in order to gain access to the place where he posts the fruit of the day? And like, right, that's the way
Yeah,
my
but
brain
they'd
works.
have to at least break into
It's
multiple
another
places. It
step.
wouldn't
Yep.
be it wouldn't be quite as simple as just throwing a deep fake up on the web like it was the first time he got hit. So
Yeah, exactly.
like it may not work against everything, but man, it's a super fast, low tech
It
way.
really
And of
is.
course, if you ever tune into his channel and you see the guy munching down on something, like, well, that was a really obvious. What's he doing? There's a reason for that. I thought that
There's
was
a
really
reason.
clever.
That's smart. I like it. I like it. Very cool. So let's talk about defense, right? And I mean, the big one that comes up in the industry a lot is security awareness training, right? I mean, your end users need to know that attacks like this are out there and possible, right? And I've long said that when it comes to AI generated phishing, we don't really do have to do stuff that is much different, right? It doesn't Phishing is phishing whether it's generated by AI or whether it's generated by a person, right? It's just another email that comes into the organization, and we defend against it exactly the same way. So that's awareness training, right? And here's the thing. Spot-the-Typo awareness training is dead, right? That very simple check the box security awareness training does not work. There are studies in the industry that show that low effort type of security awareness training does not work. Security awareness training needs to be um, very interactive. It has to be very quick and bite sized, right? There's a lot of ways that security awareness training works very well. Again, that once every 6 month check the box training, not one of them. Doesn't work anymore, right? So,
Did it
um,
ever?
that's the thing. Like, did it ever? No. I could see it working well from again, this would be like 10, 15 years ago. We have to check a box for, I don't know, CMMC compliance or whatever, right? I guess it works from that perspective. Does
But
it
did it
actually
actually?
improve security outcomes?
But you're also
Yeah.
talking 10, 15 years ago. And I know you've seen the meme that said the Rickrolling taught most of us to be more suspicious of internet things than anything else. Like, yeah, and now people like Rickrolling, what's that? Like that's gone away, but
Things said on a Sirwich family vacation. No more rickrolling. That was actually uttered on one of our vacations once. I'll have to save that story for another time. But you're right. You're right. I mean, more people were wary of links because of that than because, again, 15 years ago, because of the possibility of it being something malicious. Again, kind of going back towards the defensive conversation here, right? So, I mean, really, as an industry, we need to pivot towards kind of that verification culture, right? It starts with that security awareness training, strong email authentication. And I don't mean usernames and passwords. I mean actually verifying the authenticity of email. So that means SPF, DKIM, DMARC, right? You need link and attachment controls, right? So, I mean, you want something that has the ability to actually follow a link and actually chase that link for a while, right? X number of hops to make sure that there's nothing malicious in there. You want something that does sandboxing to make sure that, okay, hey, this link, there's something here. Let's detonate it in a sandbox environment to make sure it's not something nasty, right? I mean, there's a whole lot of advanced threat protection type stuff that you want to have in your email security solution to help combat this type of stuff. And you need something that leverages, and I've said AI a lot in this conversation. I'm going to say it again, leverages AI defensively, right? Because AI is actually really good at spotting AI generated content to a degree, right? In certain contexts. I just, again, speaking on broad defensive suggestions here, right? You want something that, again, does behavioral detection and doesn't just rely on that signature and hash-based detection methods. Because, boy, I don't know any solution on the market that relies solely on that method anymore, because that is very early 2000s style detection. Like you said earlier, Eric, attackers found out ways around the signature and hash-based detection methods fairly quickly. So again, at a high level, we don't really change the approach that much. Phishing is phishing regardless of its source, right? It's just we have better, more convincing phishing messages being levied at us, and the days of the poorly worded Nigerian print scam are gone, right? That's the difference here that we're talking about. And I would say the volume, there's been an uptick in the volume too, because it's so easy to. I did 15 spear phishing messages in about 90 seconds up on stage, and that was just me doing a demo. Somebody who's actually really doing it in their basement, how many do you think they could do in a day, right? I mean, anyway, I'm rambling now, but I think I've gotten my point across. Anything you'd like to add there, Eric?
no, I think you're making me think a lot. And oh no,
I hope for the better. Not for the
yeah.
better.
Well, some of it's a little bit freaky too. Is we're already in a place with some people like I think we're just going to take their cell phones away from them because like they'll answer every phone call and well, they sounded like they were from my bank. Like your bank is not going to call you, and I just like can't seem to get that through. Your bank is not going to call you. If your bank has a problem, they're going to send you something in the mail. If it's that
Yep.
big of a deal, they're not going to call you. They're not going to do that. Maybe you'll get an alert text, but it shouldn't have a link in it. Like at least my bank doesn't. When they have a fraud things, like we think we've detected fraud, but they don't send links.
Yep. Yep.
So they'll tell you like these are the steps you need to take, and they're real simplistic enough to fit in a easily digestible text, but they don't send links and stuff like that. And
Right. Right.
like I don't, and it seems like the same people continue getting caught over and over and over, and that's not going to change. And
Yeah.
it
I know my bank, they, as a rule, they say, official correspondence will come via snail mail, right?
yep.
Like if it's something really serious, comes via snail mail, which
Or it might be several financial institutions will like log into your webmail and see if we have sent you secure communication there. If
Yeah.
they're not gonna or they may mostly if it's really serious, they'll send it by snail mail, but if it's something they want in front of your face quickly, they'll put it in that secure communications inside your
Your
app.
account. Yep.
Yeah, and then they'll send you a text going, "We sent you a secure message. Go check your."
And
Like,
they've
some usually that's annoying stuff too, like, "Oh, it's your annual privacy notice." Well, that wasn't really urgent, was it? But okay, fine,
right. Yeah.
But again, yeah, a little bit of eye rolling, and that's not we need to have a discussion about what urgent means, but the method is sound.
Yeah. Yep. Well, before we wrap, Eric, I want to make sure I wrote down a couple of common questions I kept getting at the show and make sure I cover them here. Does running an uncensored model locally break any law on its own? No, there's no laws that I'm aware of. I mean, if you're doing something bad with it, then yeah, it probably breaks law. But use of the model locally itself, no.
It doesn't.
Um,
It's really it's gonna fall in that area. You'll break another law along the way if you are
yeah.
doing something bad. They don't really necessarily want to come well, we've already talked about that in New York, don't print guns in the printer thing. So attempts to criminalize a lot of this behavior have not worked well historically. So it's more about, well, you can't scam people. There's already laws that's illegal.
Yep.
You can't steal information. That's already illegal. All kinds of things. So usually they're not going to try to come after you specifically for you use XYZ model. Well, the laws aren't going to be able to keep up with that. And so they're not going to try. It's just going to more be like, don't steal. That's against the law. It's always been against the law. Nothing new here.
Right. Yep. The other question I got is like, well, could defenders use the same local models to detect or score AI generated phishing before it lands? Um, the before it lands part of that question, I got this exact question while I was there at the show. Um, the before it lands part is the question mark here, right? You need something in your email security solution that scans it before it lands, right? Just there's no way you could do that manually because you wouldn't be able to scan it until it ends up in the user's mailbox. To answer the other part of the question, right? Could you use a local model to score messages as phishing? I suppose you could. I would not rely on it because I'd want to use some sort of solution that is designed specifically for that purpose, right?
And
I wouldn't try to swizzle around my own solution, right?
the phrasing of that question makes me think the person maybe doesn't really get entirely how a lot of these models work anyway, because just because something can generate some output doesn't mean it knows what it generated,
Right.
if that makes any sense. So,
Yep.
and it comes back to where we keep calling it AI, but this is not intelligence. It's just not. And I'm sure the machines in some future are going to come back and kill me for this, but the ones that we have right now are not real intelligence. They're approximating certain intelligent behavior, but they're not intelligent in the sense that they can't then turn around and because you could take the output of something, feed it back through it. What is this? It's going to use a whole different set of stuff, and that'll be a complex model like your Gemini's and stuff that you'd be using anyway to do like. Okay, you just generated this phishing message. Is this a phishing message? Right? It's not going to use the same stuff it made to build it to it's I'm not sure if I'm making any sense here, but
No, you
the
are. You
the
are.
sort of the way that the stuff is not really smart, and so just because it made something doesn't mean it can turn around and realize that's something that it made.
Right.
So I like the person's where they're heading. Like, how about a different crux? It's like, can I use a local model to try to filter these? Well, yeah, of course you can, but using the same model that generated it, well, maybe instead of that, somebody comes up with a model and you feed it models and go, did that model generate this text? That might be something we could do.
Yeah, and your really effective AI scanners in this area will leverage multiple models to do this work. So, um, I'm just see if there's. I feel like we had a white paper we were working on that where I work, but I'll have to see if that's around. I could put that in the show notes because um, I heard rumor of something. Anyway, different thing. Last question I had here, right, is if local AI is this easy to point at abuse, should companies still adopt it internally? I mean, you could ask the same question of uh, any piece of software,
I can
right?
print pornography on a laser printer. Should we take the laser printers out? I mean,
Yep, exactly. It's the same thing. I mean, uh, you either trust your employees or you don't, right?
and this comes
And
back to, unfortunately, you're going to have to be like make a model or a corporate policy that makes sense, like,
Correct.
don't do stupid things with our equipment
Yep.
and, make it less colloquial than that, but that's the basic thing, and then punish people who break the rule.
Yep.
Like, you did stupid things with our equipment, and one stupid thing is you created and sent a phishing message, which is stealing, which is illegal, and so we're gonna
Yep.
fire you and prosecute you,
Yep.
This is not something, again, this comes back to making your rules too specific to try to knock out everything is just not gonna
Yeah.
work. It's just
And this is all to not mention we haven't even gotten to the area of shadow AI use, which is a whole different episode, right? And I mean, um, that's something you want to have your eye on as well too, in regards to this conversation. But that's a whole other can of worms we'll have to save for a future episode. So, but again, it's that argument could be applied to any technology, not just this. So,
absolutely 100%.
well, Eric, I think we covered what we set out to here, right? Kind of talk to people about what capabilities are out there for threat actors, how to defend against it, which, hopefully if you've been following email security best practices, you shouldn't have to do a whole lot more. Anything you want to add before we wrap up here, Eric?
No, just everybody, it's coming. Buckle up.
It's
More
already
fun.
here.
Yeah, I know you're busy, but and I know you're already working more hours than there in a week, but guess what? We have more for you to do, more for
No.
you to worry about. Yay.
Well, this is one industry you won't get bored in, right?
Absolutely
So
not.
I guess there's that at least. So anyway, well, Eric, thanks for spending some time with us today. Good talking to you as always, my friend. So
Thanks for having me.
definitely. And those of you watching, thanks for spending some time with us. And again, if you want to find all the links associated with the show, you can go out to www.sysadminweekly.com. Again, you can leave comments on the YouTube, Spotify versions of the show. You can go out to our GitHub discussions board. You can, leave comments and threads there, or you can email us at contact@sysadminweekly.com as well too. I'd be curious to hear if you've run into any suspected AI generated phishing. Would love to hear your feedback on that. But with that, we'll let you get back to your day. And being as this was a security focused episode, I mean this doubly so when I say it for this particular episode sign off. Stay safe out there. I say that every episode, but I mean it doubly so this time. Stay safe out there, and we will see you again next week for a future episode of SysAdmin Weekly. Have a good one.